But one of the princesses of the small tribe, whose king was about to execute him, she intervened, and that's how he was allowed to live, Juan Ortiz. And Juan Ortiz was eventually, he became the interpreter for the De Soto expedition. So this account was available in England by the 1600s. So maybe, just maybe, John Smith may have read this account and maybe he embellished his story.
He's quite capable of that.
He was a good, he was a good salesman, right? Good narrator. He understood the power of a great narrative, a great story. So maybe he incorporated Juan Ortiz's account into his story, perhaps. But this girl, Matoaka, Pocahontas, is a historical figure. She did exist. And she was about 10 years old at the time when this thing happened, in 1607.
She was 10?
She was 10 years old at the time.
So he must be like 19 if he was born in 1588.
He was born in 1580, let's say. We're talking about 1607.
Yeah.
That's 27.
Yeah.
27.
Right, yeah.
And the girl is about 10 years old. So she was probably born in 1597.
Right.
Okay? That's the math. Okay? So possibly it was just an exaggeration. Maybe he stole the story of Juan Ortiz and incorporated that into his account. Or maybe if it really happened, maybe it was just a ritual adoption ceremony that you do a mock execution. You don't actually execute the person, but you see how much fortitude and character this person has. Will they start crying and wailing, or will they just take it like a man? That sort of thing. Maybe. So we don't know what exactly happened, but he was a great storyteller, a great narrative builder. The first account was published in England in 1608, which does not mention any execution attempt. In 1624, there's this long, wonderful story of Pocahontas intervening and saving him. So Pocahontas was about 10 at the time. And eventually stories, this story was embellished even further. And I don't know who created the story that there was a romance between the two, between John Smith and Pocahontas. He's 27, she's 10. There cannot be a romance between a 27-year-old man and a child. But eventually, there's a Disney movie. There's a Disney movie called Pocahontas or whatever, in which Pocahontas is like an Asian brown-skinned Barbie girl. And John Smith is like a blonde Ken. Okay, and they are apparently there's a romance between the two. And then there's a later movie, 2000s movie, called The New World. Colin Farrell is the hero in that. He's John Smith. He was in Alexander the Great, one of the movies about Alexander the Great, in which he portrays Alexander. He was also in a movie called The Phone Booth.
Okay, that guy.
That guy, called Colin Farrell. So he is John Smith, and there's this young Asian-looking girl in that movie. So once again, they depict a romance between the two. But the truth is that the girl was just 10 when this happened, and the guy was 27. So there cannot be a romance between the two. And she's the daughter of the emperor, Powhatan. So, all that is nonsense. It's completely fabricated. It's very strongly embellished. It's not physically possible. And eventually Pocahontas married another Englishman, another John. Not John Smith, but John Rolfe, which we'll discuss later. So that's the kind of person this guy was, Lord de la War, an absolute brute, a guy along the lines of Hernando de Soto.
Yeah, like a de Soto, yeah. That's what I was thinking.
Yeah. So obviously this will set the tone for the relations with the overall Indian population. No friendship, no quarter given. So several years of savage warfare ensue as a result of these atrocities done by the English. So 1610 is when these new people come in, the new administration takes over. In 1613, an English colonist named Samuel Argall, he kidnaps this girl Pocahontas. Okay, he kidnaps her.
Daughter.
The daughter of the emperor, Powhatan.
Emperor.
Okay.
Why?
So why does he kidnap her? He wants to force Powhatan to return some of the English prisoners that he has, and he wants supplies from the king, because they are again gonna be starving soon enough. Okay, so he wants supplies, corn and meat and whatnot, and he wants some English prisoners back from Powhatan. Now the deal is this. So Pocahontas, coming back to her real name was Matoaka. Pocahontas means little lively one or something. It's a nickname. So the English kidnap her, and they bargain with the king. Give us our prisoners back and send us supplies. Now the deal is this. Powhatan, the king, he had around 80 children.
Oh, okay.
And the English, they always portray Pocahontas as being his favorite child, but that's an English claim. The guy has 80 kids. He probably did not even know all his kids. That's how many kids he had. So he sends a few English prisoners back, and he sends some corn. But he doesn't fulfill the full demands of the English. So they keep on negotiating and bargaining and threatening, but he is not really forthcoming. He doesn't really care. Okay. Eventually, even the daughter is taken to meet him, to meet his ministers or whatever, and she's angry with them that if my father has any love for me, then give the English what they want, and that sort of thing. So it's not really working. Okay. So this girl, she stays with the English, and she converts to Christianity, and she takes on the name Rebecca.
Okay.
Rebecca. And once she becomes a Christian and she takes a Christian name, they appoint a tutor for her.
Okay.
And the tutor is a guy called John Rolfe. He tutors her, he teaches her English, he explains to her how Christianity works and all that, that sort of thing. And he's an important guy in the overall history of America. So between 1612, so the girl is kidnapped in 1613. 1613.
Okay.
Now between 1612 and 1613, this guy John Rolfe, he experimented with tobacco. So he comes up with a strain of tobacco that is sweeter and much more profitable than the local variety. So it's a tobacco breeder. So he's the guy who is the tutor of Pocahontas in 1613 onwards. And John Rolfe becomes the colony's economic savior. He turns Jamestown into a thriving tobacco exporting settlement. They start exporting tobacco by the ton.
Okay. Wow.
Super lucrative. Suddenly it becomes financially profitable. And he falls in love with the girl.
Okay.
John Rolfe falls in love with Pocahontas, and he writes to the governor that I am madly in love with this girl. I know it is not proper. She is a native and I'm a white man, but I can't help myself and blah, blah, blah. And what happens is that by this time, by 1614, when he has fallen in love with her and all that, everyone's exhausted. Okay, everyone's exhausted of the fighting. The Indians as well as the English were exhausted by the non-stop warfare. And they were seeking a way to end the warfare without losing face. So the prospect of this marriage suddenly became attractive to everybody. So, and you know, the English had failed to collect a full ransom for the girl from her father.
Right.
The father was not interested. He didn't care. We take her, you kill her. He was not really interested in this matter. So the governor decides that for the good of the plantation and for the good of the colony, I will approve this marriage. Okay? And the girl's father also approved the marriage. He said, okay. Okay, so let's turn this into a political union and we become allies.
Okay.
And this should lead to a ceasefire. So the father of the girl, the emperor, he approves the marriage and he sends two of her brothers to attend the marriage. He sends one of his brothers also. So Pocahontas' marriage with John Rolfe happens in 1614 in April. In 1614 April, it is attended by two of her brothers and one of her uncles. So that makes it official that her father is approved.
Political, yes. Yeah.
Right? And this then it secures a period of peace. And that period of peace is called the Pocahontas Peace. And the colonists and the Powhatan Confederacy become allies of sorts. They stop all the warfare. And this kind of demonstrates for the English, for a brief period of time, that there's a hope of assimilating the Indians into our culture and into English society through conversions and intermarriage. Their objective was never conversions, but conversion, they saw over here it worked. So maybe we can, we can experiment with this. We can try it out in the future. So yeah, that's the deal with Pocahontas. So there's a period of peace, Pocahontas peace. She gets married in April 1614. In 1616, the Virginia Company sponsors her trip to England with her husband and her little baby. She has a baby now. Okay. And the objective is to showcase the successful civilization of an Indian princess. We have civilized the daughter of the great Emperor Powhatan. They've turned her into an English woman. And look at her; she's married one of our guys, and she has a child.
Yeah.
So Pocahontas comes to England in 1616, and she's taken on a grand tour of the country. She meets royalty, she meets nobility, she attends all kinds of very high-profile events, court festivities, and she also sat for a very famous portrait, the only portrait that survives of her from her time, in which she is dressed as an English woman, and the artist has done his best to make her look like an English woman. But obviously her appearance is that of an Indian, a native American, right? And during her trip to England, she meets John Smith again.
Oh.
The guy who was injured and he had to go back to England. So she meets him again. It is a brief reunion meeting with him. Kind of awkward. She reminds John Smith that he had made promises to her father. He has not kept them, that sort of thing. And that sort of thing. So it was a brief and slightly awkward meeting with John Smith. But John Smith was pleased to see that she is doing so well, and she is more civilized than most Indian ladies, most English ladies that we have here. And she's more regal, and she's like a real princess. So he was happy to see that. So there was an awkward brief reunion with John Smith. In 1617, Pocahontas and her husband, John Rolfe, they get ready to go back to England, but Pocahontas and her son Thomas, they both fall sick, so the journey is delayed for a while. Then they recover to a certain extent, and they set off again on the journey. But Pocahontas again falls sick, and she dies in March 1617 at the age of about 20 or 21. She dies an early death. Maybe the English weather, maybe the English bacteria or whatever did not agree with her, and she died. She dies in a place called Gravesend on the Thames River, and she's buried somewhere there. I don't think they know the exact location of the tomb, but she's buried somewhere over there. And the church eventually burned down at a later time. Her son survived, Thomas Rolfe, and the father and son returned to Virginia. Thomas Rolfe grew up, became a successful colonist and planter. He was accepted as an Englishman by his fellow Englishmen, and he met his Indian relatives only once or twice. He was the grandson of the Emperor Powhatan,
right?
But he met his Indian relatives only once or twice. He became a fully
British,
anglicized Englishman, half English. So Thomas Rolfe married an English woman. He had a daughter, Jane Rolfe, who married a guy called Robert Bolling, and they had a son called John Bolling. And Robert Bolling's descendants are called Red Bollings because they have Indian blood, Red Indians. Okay, and Robert Bolling also had another wife later. She also has descendants, but she was not Indian. So her descendants are called White Bollings because they were white, not red. Reds are Indians. So today, Pocahontas is about 10,000 descendants who are alive today.
Okay.
So her lineage survived. So, and there's another class of Bollings who are the blue Bollings, who are people who have made up fake ancestry and they have come out of the blue. So they're red, white, and blue Bollings. Red, white, blue, the American flag.
Okay. Oh,
Okay?
yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So Pocahontas is about 10,000 descendants today. There's an actor called Edward Norton, who is her descendant. He was Brad Pitt's alter ego in Fight Club. Have you seen Fight Club?
Yes.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
So that guy with the bruises on black eyes and all that.
Okay.
That's Edward Norton. He's descended from Pocahontas. And there are about 10,000 people or so, 10,000 or so people alive today who are descended from her.